Yes, it's part of the job to find private things to do with people and private ways to spend your time and have fun, but it's getting harder in a world where many artists hide who they really are. Ronstadt stood out by being completely honest. Join us as we look at the amazing journey of a woman who broke records and changed the way people thought about music. Stay tuned, her story will amaze you. She was the first female solo superstar to sell out arenas, had 6 consecutive platinum albums, and was the highest paid woman in music. Ronstadt was a trailblazer in an industry dominated by men, and her high-profile relationships made headlines. Let's look into the amazing story of a woman who made sure that. From the time she was born in 1946 in Tucson, Arizona, Linda Ronstadt grew up in a family that loved music. From a very young age, the melodies of home shaped her world. Her father Gilbert had a voice that could have been heard on professional stages as Gil Ronstadt and his Star Spangled Megaphone. He performed at the Fox Tycoon Theater in the 1930s. Even though he was good at music, he chose to work in the family business. He played and sang for fun, not to make money. He filled the house with soulful tunes and lullabies like Canto Dunia, a mesmerizing song about a silvery coyote in the sky. Peter, her older brother, had a great voice for harmony and led Linda, their older sister Susie, and their younger brother Mike for a while. Linda, Peter, and Susie formed a folk trio called the New Union Ramblers, but it was only Linda who played lead vocals. Who took the chance and moved to Los Angeles, setting the stage for her future fame. Her father's heart sank when she told him she wanted to work in the music business, because he knew how hard it was. If my daughter wanted to work in the music business, I'd probably lock her in a closet, he said. He finally let her go with his beloved guitar Martin, which had been in the family since 1898, and was a gift from his father Fred, with the promise that if you own a guitar, you will never be hungry. When Linda moved to Los Angeles in 1965, Gilbert gave her the Martin, but he didn't like her first song. Linda's career took off in 1967 when her folk band The Stone Ponies released Different Drum. When her father heard it on the radio for the first time in Tucson, he was shocked. He thought it was funny, Ronstadt says. It's not that I mock it, it's just that I'm not in the market. After the Stone Ponies broke up, Linda started making country music with the release of Homegrown in 1969. She was the first woman to release an alt-country album, which was the start of her career. Ronstadt's solo career really took off in the mid-1970s when her talent became impossible to ignore. In 1974, her album Heart Like a Wheel became history when it jumped to #1 on the pop charts, beating out even Led Zeppelin and Elton John. The record went double platinum and sold over 2 million copies in the U.S. Ronstadt had a special talent for writing her own songs. She introduced new songwriters to a wider audience through her interpretations, which often did better than the original recordings. This talent solidified her reputation as a masterful song interpreter. In September 1975, Ronstadt released Prisoner in Disguise, which quickly shot to the top 5 on the Billboard album chart and sold over 1 million copies. The next year, she reached the top 3 with Hasten Down the Wind, which earned her a second Grammy Award for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. This album was her third straight platinum success, solidifying her status as a music industry powerhouse. By the end of 1977, Linda Ronstadt's album Simple Dreams had reached new heights of success. It held the #1 spot on the Billboard album chart for 5 weeks in a row and beat Elvis Presley to the top of the country albums chart, selling over 3.5 million copies in its first week. First year in the U.S. alone with Simple Dreams was a monumental achievement. Torchy Rock controversy around the same time, her Time magazine cover with the title Torchy Rock caused controversy. This was during a time when the music industry was still largely controlled by men controlling women's choices. Ronstadt hated the image shown on that cover and talked about how the photographer made her wear a dress, even though she had worn a revealing dress for the cover of Hasten. In a 2004 interview with CBS This Morning, Ronstadt said that the cover didn't show her true self, saying, "I didn't sit like that." Her producer, Peter Asher, praised her independence, saying that anyone who's met Linda for 10 seconds will know that she's a very determined woman in every area. This refusal to conform and determination emphasized her. Her career showed how strong and independent she was in a business that often tried to control its female stars. By the end of 1978, Linda Ronstadt had become one of the most successful solo female artists in rock and pop. Her string of platinum albums and ability to sell out arenas and stadiums made her one of the highest-paid women in rock culture. 6 platinum albums, 3 of which topped the Billboard album chart. And many hit singles made Ron's career go off the charts. In 1978 alone, she made over $12 million, which is about $38 million today, and her album sales reached 17 million, which is about $60 million today. By the 1980s, Ronstadt was tired of sold-out concerts, non-stop touring, and even her own hits. She wanted something new, and often dreamed of Mexican music. "I just wasn't getting songs that were as good as the songs I learned as a child," she says. "I thought those were better songs. Those were better constructed, nicer poetry." Before she started recording and performing traditional Mexican music, Linda Ronstadt dedicated herself to. Wagons were especially hard to learn because they had complicated rhythms and a high falsetto part. To get better at these, she worked as an apprentice with the famous mariachi group Los Camperos Davao in L.A. The band members were surprised when Ron wanted to sing mariachi, which is usually sung by men and isn't shown on a world stage very often. During the studio session, she wore a peach-colored rebozo, was a gift from the famous Mexican singer Lola Beltran, better known as Lola L. Gran. Ronstadt named her album Canin del Padre, taking the name from her Aunt Louisa's 1946 songbook. However, some white critics saw Canin del Padre as a big change for Ronstadt, as if they didn't know her deep Mexican roots. Ronstadt had to keep explaining that Mexico is a cultural mosaic and that one branch of her family had lived there since the 1700s. She made it clear that she didn't speak Spanish because her family felt pressured to fit in and gave up their native language. She also reminded people that she grew up in an area that was part of Mexico until not long ago. Despite all of that, Canin's Drip Padre was a huge hit, quickly reaching double platinum status when the tour was being planned. Ronstadt got the idea for Canin del Padre from her Aunt Louisa, who planned the show as a series of short scenes that showed different parts of Mexico. To make her vision come true, she hired Manuel Quaz, a famous Mexican designer known as the Rhinestone Rembrandt, who used to be the lead tailor for Nudicone Quad and made famous outfits for celebrities like Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley, and the Beatles. Dwight Yoakam, Hank Williams, Gene A., Bob Dylan, and Graham Parsons designed stunning costumes for Ronstadt. The costumes included ornate cowgirl jackets, long woolen cavalry twill skirts, and custom-stitched boots. Almost everything was embellished with Swarovski crystals and shiny threads that glistened under the stage lights, making for a stunning visual spectacle. Ronstadt was thrilled to see audiences of all ages. Many people brought their grandmothers to see her performances when she was at the height of her fame. Linda Ronstadt's career was unmatched. Her wide vocal range and ability to appeal to people of all musical styles made her a trailblazer in her own right. Ron's impressive Grammy record 27 nominations in categories such as rock, country, pop, tropical, Latin, contemporary, folk, Mexican American, and children's music shows how successful she was. She won 11 competitive Grammy Awards and was. Ron's charisma was real, not tainted by curated Instagram feeds or auto-tune. Her unique voice, shaped by the ranchera music of her Mexican-American heritage and based in the Sonoran borderlands, stood out. She was awarded a Grammy for Lifetime Achievement in 2011. This foundation helped her do very well in opera, giving a great performance as Mabel in The Pirates of Penzance. She had to deal with sexism, but Linda Ronstadt also had to deal with big problems, like the fact that sexism was common in the music business. In a field controlled by men, Ronstadt was honest about her struggles and the intense loneliness of life on the road. In a 1976 interview with Cameron Crowe for Rolling Stone, she talked about the experience, saying, "They haven't invented a word for that loneliness that everyone goes through while." In a 1974 interview with Peter Nobler for COD, she talked about how frustrated she was with how people were always taking advantage of her, and how everyone who was interested in her had an angle. At that time, there weren't many female rock singers, and when they were around male rock stars, they were often treated like groupies, which was a status Ronstadt was determined to change. Avoiding professional relationships with male musicians led to competition anxiety and a string of troubled relationships with boyfriend managers at the time. Linda Ronstadt admired artists like Maria Mulder, who stayed feminine while succeeding in a male-dominated industry. However, she felt a huge amount of pressure to perform at the same level as the boys in a 1969 Fusion concert. In a magazine interview, she talked about the difficulties of being a female singer with an all-male backup band. She said it was hard to put together a band because of the ego problems that came with being seen as a female artist's side project. She also said that she had self-doubt, even though she was a superstar. In a 2019 documentary, Ronstadt's former manager said that she would often worry when she saw people whispering at her concerts, thinking that they were criticizing her abilities. Ronstadt said in interviews that she struggled with feelings of not being good enough, and that it took her a while to get to a place where she could focus only on the music and not her worries. During her concerts, Linda Ronstadt tried to avoid seeing familiar faces in the crowd because they made her feel uncomfortable. However, she had trouble understanding why people wanted to see her perform. Being a public figure meant that she was constantly watched, which made it hard for her to observe others and handle personal relationships. She spent a lot of time on a tour bus, which she once compared to the repetitive and lonely life shown in Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, just as Conrad's vivid scenes show the. Ronstadt thought of her touring life as a never-ending loop of buses, hotels, sound checks, show dinners, and performances, with one day blending into the next. This never-ending cycle made each day feel like a mere echo of the one before her. Famous relationships. Many people thought that Linda Ronstadt's love life was as empty as her busy schedule, but that wasn't the case. While she was busy recording, touring, and receiving awards, Ronstadt was also in a number of high-profile relationships. One of her most famous relationships was with Jerry Brown, who was governor of California at the time. They met at Lucy's El Adobe, a Mexican restaurant in Los Angeles, in 1971. Their interesting relationship was even featured on the cover of Newsweek in April 1979. It was a striking mix of power and fame, making them one of the most interesting odd couples of the time. Their relationship was intense and out of the ordinary, just like their defiant personalities. According to Jim Newton's book Man of Tomorrow, The Relentless Life of Jerry Brown, their relationship was very different from the norm. In April 1979, Ronstadt and Governor Brown went on a very public trip to Africa. The trip caused a lot of interest among the public, but details about their adventure stayed secret, which led to a lot of speculation. When a reporter asked her about it, she denied it. Ronstadt's sharp response to marriage rumors in 1979, "Would you marry someone you'd only known for 2 years?" showed how smart and independent she was. Newton's book shows that Ronstadt quickly became an important part of Brown's story, just as he became an important part of hers. She was just as famous in California as he was, and even more famous outside of California. They really like each other. Newton quoted Assemblyman Willie Brown as saying to Newsweek in 1979, "He's a different person when he's with her. There's a side the public never sees. He's flirty, flippant, and very funny, and he's as interested in her physically as I'd like him to be." Their relationship was in the spotlight from the mid to late 1970s to the early 1980s. Ronstadt once said that Brown was a break from the musician circle she was in. Even though Ronstadt generally didn't like politics, she was willing to play the role of unofficial First Lady sometimes, enjoying social events and even mixing with royalty. When Brown ran for president in 1980, Ronstadt helped him by putting together 2 benefit concerts in his honor. Despite their hard work and high-profile support, Brown failed to win a single primary. He eventually dropped out of the race after the campaign was over, and Ronstadt and Brown started to drift apart, which meant the end of their relationship. In her 2013 memoir, Linda Ronstadt wrote about her relationship with Jerry Brown with a sense of clarity and acceptance. She said, "Neither of us ever suffered under the delusion that we would like to share each other's lives, would have found his life too restrictive, and eventually we went our separate ways and found paths that worked for us as individuals. Despite everything, we have always been on good terms." In 1981, Brown wrote about his own feelings on relationships. "I definitely want to have a wife and children. I just haven't found the right person. I'm struggling to do the work that I'm doing, and that. My biggest struggle is that my wife would have to be very committed to what I'm doing, and my restless mind might not always be in sync with home life." By 2005, Brown had finally found the right partner, but he and Ronstadt kept being friends even though a lot of time had passed. After their relationship ended, Ronstadt tried new relationships, including a famous one with George Lucas. Linda Ronstadt, the visionary behind Star Wars, and acclaimed director George Lucas began a secret relationship in 1983. They met backstage at one of Ron's concerts and quickly became involved. They were so private that they avoided being photographed together and kept their personal lives out of the public eye. There was a rumor that Ron had rented a house in San Francisco and made frequent trips from her home in Los Angeles to visit George. Lucas, who was enchanted by Ronstadt, immersed himself in her world for a short time by taking dance and guitar lessons, but his enthusiasm didn't last. In an effort to impress her, he swapped his glasses for contacts and shaved off his once unruly beard to try to become the cool, suave partner. Even though there were rumors of marriage, the couple never got married. They did get engaged, as Ronstadt candidly showed off the ring on her finger. During their time together, she spent a lot of time at Skywalker Ranch riding horses and using the sound facilities to record her 1987 album Canin del Padre, which was a tribute to traditional Mexican folk songs. Lucas, who was deeply in love with her, even suggested building a honeymoon cottage on a plot next to his Skywalker Ranch. However, this romantic move never materialized, and after 5 years of dating, the couple quietly broke up in 1988. In 1983, Linda Ron started dating a young comedian named Jim Carrey. They met at one of Carrey's shows at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, where Ron was looking for an opening act for her tour, but Carrey wasn't interested. When he agreed to open for her, he was open to a different kind of relationship, one that involved dating. Their relationship grew, and they had a great time together for about 8 months. Carrie later praised Ronstadt, saying she is an absolutely incredible person. Why did she choose not to marry over the years? Ronstadt has also been linked to musicians J.D. Souther, journalist Pete Hamill, Rolling Stone MC Jagger, Steve Martin, and Little Feat singer Lel. George, even though she was often in the spotlight with powerful men, marriage never seemed to fit into her plans. There was a lot of talk about her personal life and sexuality, but Ronstadt herself said that her ultimate goal was to find a partner who would truly connect with her heart. She wanted someone who would be loyal, caring, and funny. However, some saw Ron's sexuality as a flaw. Linda's restless nature makes it hard for her to settle down. Her longtime producer and friend Peter Asher commented on this, saying, "Linda is already getting restless, that's just her nature. Linda does have a wandering eye, and she doesn't want to settle down." The media even called her a heartbreaker with a tendency for high-profile relationships when she was dating George Lucas. George is so lucky to be with her. He will have the most fun he's ever had in his life. Then she will break his heart into a million pieces and move on to someone else. Linda Ronstadt never got married, but she found happiness in adopting children, which had been her dream for years. At age 44, she adopted her first child, a daughter named Mary Clementine Ronstadt. In 1994, Ronstadt adopted a baby boy named Carlos to add to her family. After living in Los Angeles for 30 years, Ronstadt moved to San Francisco and then back to her roots in Tucson, Arizona, to raise her children. She lost her melodic voice, and by 2000, Ronstadt could feel troubling changes in her once famous voice, despite the problems she was having with what she was doing. Releasing a solo album called Humming to Myself in 2004 and a collaboration with a C-Voy on A Dew Falls Heart in 2006. However, her frustration grew as her voice changed from melodic singing to strained yelling. Her last live performance was in November 2009, and as the physical effects of her illness got worse, Ronstadt had severe back pain and had a hard time doing simple things like brushing her teeth. Facing the loss of touring income, Ronstadt started a new project by writing her memoir. Even though her fingers were having trouble working together, she got lost in writing about her life. Her persistent tremors eventually led a friend to suggest that she see a neurologist. In December 2012, while she was finishing up her book, Ronstadt got the devastating news that she had Parkinson's disease. By August 2013, she was getting ready for the media frenzy. Around the time her memoir, Simple Dreams, came out, she bravely told AARP about her diagnosis. She thought the disease might have been caused by a tick bite. She also told the world the heartbreaking truth that she could no longer sing and had to use a wheelchair or walking sticks for longer distances. The news caused a wave of empathy and support. The famous singer, who was now dealing with the relentless progress of her condition, was honored for her contributions to music in 2014 by being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and receiving the prestigious National Medal of Arts from President Barack Obama. However, Linda Ron's daily life was shaped by the relentless progress of her Parkinson's disease. She moved to the peaceful Sea Cliff neighborhood of San Francisco after selling her beloved home in Arizona. Ronstadt focused on making a supportive environment for her two grown children. The serene backdrop of the Bay Area opened a new chapter for her, with regular workouts with a personal trainer to help her manage her condition. Her friends, who were very loyal and caring, often stopped by to see her. Jackson Browne, Paul Simon, and even former Beau Jerry Brown were among those who did. Emil Harris, a close collaborator and friend, also took time to reconnect with Ronstadt. By 2018, Ronstadt was back in the public eye. Ronstadt started to get noticed again. She talked about her long career and ongoing health problems in a series of interviews with Linda. Even though she had trouble speaking, Ronstadt kept people interested with her stories and clips from her famous concerts. She was honest with the San Francisco Chronicle about her unique struggle with Parkinson's disease, revealing that she was one of the few people who didn't respond well to standard dopamine treatments, so she stopped taking her medication. Her return to the public eye wasn't easy. At the Music Hair Person of the Year Gala in February 2019, a heartfelt embrace from her friend and former bandmate Dolly Parton threw Ronstadt off balance. She reached for the podium, but her funny misstep caused the prestigious award to fall and break on the floor. Veteran performer kept going with unwavering spirit. Soon after the Music Hairs event, Ronstadt went to Mexico with Jackson Browne to take part in a cultural arts program that taught kids music and dance. This trip showed how dedicated she was to the arts and how much she wanted to make a difference. In September 2019, Ronstadt made another public appearance. The long-awaited documentary Linda Ronstadt, The Sound of My Voice, finally came out. It gave an honest look into her life, with Ronstadt talking about how hard it is to lose her physical abilities and her once famous singing voice. Despite her problems, she stayed positive, telling People magazine, "It's like not having a leg or an arm. But there's nothing I can do about it in my mind. In my imagination, I can still sing." After the success of her best-selling musical memoir, Simple Dreams, Ronstadt released Feels. At age 78, Linda Ronstadt had to face the bittersweet truth that she can no longer play her beloved piano. Parkinson's disease, which took away her once beautiful voice, has also made her fine motor skills worse. However, the piano is still an important part of her home and is always in tune so that others can enjoy it. Even though she can't express herself musically, she finds comfort in knowing that the melodies that still ring out on her beloved instrument are a testament to Linda Ratt's incredible talent and strength. Her groundbreaking work and the barriers she broke continue to inspire future generations. If you like this in-depth look into her life and career, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories about music legends. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay up to date on our newest videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.